Would I repurchase the Elektron Digitakt if I lost it in an unspeakably horrific accident? Short answer, yes. Long answer, yeah. So here's the Digitakt we all know and love, or at least the one I know and love, because this one's mine. Yours may or may not look exactly the same. I wanted to talk a little bit about whether or not I'd buy the Digitakt again, knowing what I know now, and after having been with it for about a year and a week. If you've been following the channel for a while now, you know that it was actually kind of, sparked by the Digitakt itself and me sort of demystifying it from my own perspective, because I did have my challenges with it when I first tried it out a few years ago. So what I want to focus on here is who may or may not actually benefit from having the Digitakt in terms of your different levels of experience or potential use cases, especially in the year 2022, when there is really so much else out there to choose from in terms of, hardware and even software, samplers and synths and drum machines and external controllers. One of my reasons for doing this is that when I was looking to get the Digitakt, I ran into a bit of sort of polarizing or contrasting information on who it might be good for, because a lot of people were saying, the workflow has a really steep learning curve, it's pretty complex. And then a lot of other folks were saying, oh, it's really easy, it's really simple compared to something like the Octatrack. And as someone who hasn't used any of these devices, you might see, oh, it's easy to learn, that's great. Or you might say, oh, the learning curve is really steep, and that could scare you away. So it really does depend on your sort of electronic music experience and your, music making experience in general, and how comfortable you might be with the sort of workflow that the Digitakt utilizes. So I guess I'm going to start with, So let's start with the perspective of somebody who might be really experienced with electronic music already. Say you've been using a DAW for a while, you're really comfortable with software, or maybe you're really comfortable with like sequencing hardware synths. Definitely, I think the Digitakt would be a great purchase for you. I think that it can be a great standalone piece. So if you like travel a lot and want to have like a little companion synth to bring with you, it could be really great. And it's also just kind of like a good, central hub or idea generator for your studio. You can kind of turn it on by itself without hooking up anything else, and just you could use it as a sketchpad, but you can also start a piece with it as the brain, knowing that you can easily put in external synths to sequence or sample in external sources to add different parts if you want. So yeah, it's really great for an experienced musician and somebody who really knows what they're doing. I think they'd be able to pick up the Elektron workflow really quickly, and they wouldn't really have many problems integrating it into their studio because it is so user-friendly in that context. That said, it doesn't have to be the brain of your studio if you don't want it to be. It is sequenceable by other MIDI gear, or you don't even have to use MIDI at all if that's too intimidating and not something you want to deal with. Okay, so my next use case scenario is going to be somebody who is a relatively seasoned musician and may or may not be into electronic music or synth hardware, and is just kind of familiar with a general, audio workstation workflow and knows what automation is familiar with the concept of motion sequencing, but maybe hasn't actually, gotten their hands on hardware and implemented it themselves into their own music. I would say yes, the Digitakt is a great option for that person. And that's kind of where I was coming from at the time. I was coming from a very different workflow with the OP1, but I understood, the concepts of sequencing and entering notes onto a grid, and I was able to watch a lot of Digitakt tutorials and understand the general jargon of what the instructors were talking about when they were teaching their lessons. So that's all really helpful and is a big part of the learning curve for a new user. I think that the general workflow is great, and having the different pages and knobs corresponding to different letters on the pages is a really useful feature. And I think once you sort of break it down and are able to sort of like separate the different sections of how the keys are laid out, it can really help you sort of compartmentalize the different functions of the device. And again, if you know what those functions do, then it's going to be a lot easier for you to just learn how to navigate the device rather than teaching yourself all of the functions alongside of that process. So yeah, definitely great for somebody who's really seasoned and has a ton of experience. Definitely great for a musician who's maybe wanting to get a little bit more serious about their electronic music setup. So that kind of leaves somebody who's a total and complete beginner. Maybe you're a musician, maybe you've been playing guitar for like 15 years and you've always wanted to try making beats. Or maybe you haven't touched anything related to music production at all and you want a piece of hardware to play with. Is the Digitakt going to be a good purchase for you? I don't think it would be, to be honest. And this is the one situation that I would actually highly recommend a lot of other gear over the Digitakt itself. Learning how to sequence on a grid might seem like a pretty basic concept to people who've been doing it forever and who have experience with digital audio workstations, but to somebody for who it is a new concept, it is a lot more challenging to kind of understand how it works at its foundation. And I think there are a lot more approachable, affordable, and beginner-friendly devices that are better for teaching that skill set. And I think the budget is really the biggest part of that, because there are a lot of other affordable options that can really teach you the foundations at a low risk, high reward ratio, like the Teenage Engineering Pocket Operators, for example. The PO12 was my intro to sequencing, and I made a lot of fun music with just that and my guitar in my DAW, and it really taught me how to utilize motion sequencing for effects and how to, change notes per step when I'm using the same synth or drum synth sound. And it's a really cheap and fun tool, and it taught me a lot. There's also the PO33 sample. If you want to work with samples, if there's like a certain genre of music you want to work with, or like you're really into lo-fi hip hop, then that one is kind of like an obvious choice in my perspective because of the sort of lo-fi quality and sampling capabilities. And you can learn the sampling workflow alongside of the sequencing workflow. And there are a lot of other product lines that are good for teaching this sort of basic sequencing in the context of synthesis or sampling. Some of them I'm more familiar with than others. I know I've had a couple of the Korg Volcas, and those are really great for beginners and are also super affordable. And then the Novation Circuit lineup I've heard is really good. I've seen some really cool work being done with those machines as well, in tandem with the Elektron devices. So I know that they're very configurable and syncable with a lot of other hardware. And don't forget about software either. I know that hardware can be really exciting to get into, but if you are a beginner and you want to try out something for free, you can use some of the built-in step sequencers within GarageBand if you have any Apple product. I think they even have it on iPhones. And yeah, it's maybe not as satisfying or as comprehensive as like a hardware step sequencer, but it will teach you the basics for sure. And that's not to say that a beginner couldn't grow into something more complicated like the Digitakt, but I do think it would be a bit of overkill for the first maybe 6 months or so of somebody who's kind of like learning that process flow and seeing if it's something that they actually want to pursue with their electronic music. Because hardware step sequencers aren't for everybody, and the Elektron workflow isn't for everybody either. Oh, how could I forget the sort of entry-level Elektron lineup with the model cycles and the model samples. I've heard pretty good things about those too. But again, if you do have more experience, I would kind of recommend just going for the Digitakt over something like the model samples, just because I think you might outgrow the samples quicker. But again, for a beginner, would be super great for actually learning the workflow and seeing what it's like to use a hardware sampler with some physical and creative limitations. So yeah, I would totally buy my Digitakt over 2, 3, 4 times if I lost it, because I've come to really love the workflow, the sort of superficial simplicity but very easily discoverable depth that exists within the machine. And to be honest, I'm actually kind of at the point where I'm looking for something to take my Digitakt and Digatone to the next level. An infamous product that you may have heard about around these parts that has 8 tracks. So if someone wants to give me one of those, then you know where to find me. And the Digitakt has also really helped me utilize pieces of gear that I've already had for a while, like my modular. I've been sampling my modular into my Digitakt and using that to make arrangements. I've been implementing my Arturia keystep, which had gotten very dusty over the past couple of years because it's so easy to just hook it up and use it as a MIDI keyboard. And the Digatone, obviously, has been a great companion piece to the Digitakt. I do have some initial impressions and a review of that if you're interested in incorporating that to your workflow. If you're interested in learning more about the Digitakt, as part of my Patreon subscription service, I do offer one-on-one lessons and sort of feedback sessions, consultations for any of the synths that I cover on my channel, including the Digitakt, the Digatone, the OP1, and some beginner modular stuff too, if that's something you're interested in. If you're interested in having some one-on-one sessions with me or doing, virtual lessons, definitely get in touch and take a look at the Patreon that is linked in the description of the video. If you've made it to the end and you've been thinking about getting a Digitakt or you have one, let me know what your favorite feature is or the thing you're most excited about in sort of considering the prospect of getting a Digitakt. And if you liked the video, then like the video. And if you didn't like the video, then try rewatching it at half speed. Anyways, thanks y'all for stopping by. I hope you have a great day, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.